Cup 2 podcast coming at you live from the OC Rock Radio studio at Saddleback College. And Jared, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl most of the podcast. But before we do, I want to get, how was your Super Bowl weekend? How was your Sunday specifically?
It was fantastic. Other than my Cowboys not being in the Super Bowl, which I had to sit there and watch the Eagles win. It was great. My friend came down, Alex, a friend of the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he came down from school, so went to a family friend's house of his and had a huge party outside there. They had the TV in the garage and then tables and chairs set up in the driveway. We had a taco truck. We had a churro guy. There was drinks. I was eating and drinking the whole time, praying that the Patriots would win, but they did not. So I just drank some more. But it was a good time with some friends and everything. So how about you?
Yeah, no, I went over to my cousin's place up in LA, and we I don't think we had probably as good as food as you did. We forced his girlfriend to make us this cheese dip that we'd had on Christmas, totally unhealthy for no reason. We asked her to do it, and then we also had this chicken and of course like hot dogs and all that stuff. But no, it was a fun little thing. We I did more on the Saturday before, bike road in Santa Monica, like I was just telling you off the air, and did all that. But no, it's a fun Super Bowl. The game was obviously good, and yeah, it was. I think we should probably get into the game topics now because it was.
Do we have to?
It was an interesting thing, and I'll tell you this, guys. I know last week on the podcast, I believe I said that I didn't want the Patriots to win, right? That I didn't want the Eagles to win. Well, for some reason, about 10 minutes into that game, I couldn't stand to look at Tom Brady do good things.
Oh my gosh!
So I started cheering for the Eagles. So I apologize, Jared, for leaving Eagle energy out into the air here in the LA area.
You did. It's your fault that they won. I'm blaming you. No, listen, what I don't understand, if I would have told you that Tom Brady were to throw for 500 yards.
Oh, yeah.
And they would only have one turnover and that they wouldn't punt the entire game, like, is there any way that you would think they would lose?
Football is so unpredictable.
Ridiculous.
It's just, and you're right, 500 yards. The no punts thing is crazy to me.
Right.
And it's like, I don't know, I guess this Eagles team just really, their offense was this dynamic and ended up, doing it the whole way through. Even with a backup quarterback in Nick Foles. I don't even think we can call Nick Foles a backup quarterback anymore, to be honest. He should be starting somewhere next year. The guy is clearly good enough to play. He was good enough to play for the Eagles back in the day, too. When I say back in the day, I mean like 3 or 4 years ago. But Nick Foles, what a performance. He earned the MVP in this game. He led the Eagles to this win. But even with Nick Foles' greatness in this game, this was a team effort from the Eagles. And it was actually a team effort from the Patriots, too. It just came down to the Patriots ran out of time. That's what it kind of seemed like. It reminded me of the national championship game, I believe it was 3 years ago, when Alabama beat Clemson the first time, where people were saying, Clemson just ran out of time. They scored too late. They didn't have enough time to come back. This is what this seemed like to me. The Patriots just ran out of time. It wasn't like they got completely outplayed. There was one big giant mistake that they made coaching-wise that we'll definitely get into, and we'll probably almost hold an entire segment on due to the decision that Bill Belichick made. But other than that, this really was just, to me, the Patriots ran out of time, and it was a great Super Bowl because of that.
Yeah, no, I think completely differently. I think the Patriots were outcoached and outplayed, and I think they were playing from behind, in a sense, the entire game. And not even necessarily on the scoreboard. What I mean by playing behind is I don't think they were ever comfortable. Like, usually you see the Patriots, and even if they're losing by 7 or 10 points, they still feel like, okay, we always have a chance. Like, we're still going to run our plays. We're not going to get out of our rhythm and out of our concepts and philosophies to try to catch up with other teams. And I feel like that's what the Patriots team had to do. They never seemed like they were comfortable or they were in control. The Eagles, I have to give them credit, and you have to give their coaching staff their credit for the way that they called their offensive plays. They were very aggressive. They came out in the first possession. They gave Nick Foles an easy 5-yard completion. And from there, he just got more and more comfortable. And at that first touchdown to Alshon Jeffrey, that bomb, They were going to take some shots. They were not. If they were going to lose this game, they were going to go down swinging. And for Doug Peterson, I have to give him a lot of credit because that's how you have to play it against, not even if it's the Patriots. This is a Super Bowl. You can't go out here and just dink and dunk and expect to run the ball and win. They came out, they took their shots, they made their, they completed the long passes when they needed to. And I think that's really the reason why they won. The Patriots were always on their heels, and they did not have as many big play opportunities as the Eagles did.
I do have to agree with you on one of those points, that the Patriots did play from behind a lot in this game. And I think it was due to the fact that they've done this so many times in the past. They have always been able to come back and win games. I mean, I remember I was telling people this at the party that I was at. I was saying, man, the Patriots literally never get blown out. Their games are always close, especially in the playoffs. There's always that chance, whether they're down by 8 or whether they're down by 25 against the Falcons. They always seem to come back on these games, and I think that's what their mindset was there. And it was one of the reasons they were playing from behind the whole time. I disagree, though, that they got completely outcoached. Like I said, there's one big decision on a player they didn't play that a lot of us are still baffled on, that we'll talk about later. But other than that, I really think this was just a back-and-forth game. And if not for, if the Patriots complete one more pass near the end of that game, they have a way more legitimate chance at scoring on that Hail Mary than they actually did, at the end of the game. So I really think it's hard to say they got outcoached when they really did have a last chance to score, and they were about 45 yards away from potentially tying the game.
Right, yeah, and let's not forget, I don't think a lot of people are talking about this either, special teams. Last week when we were talking about the advantages of,
yes,
who's better offensively, defensively, special teams, I think we both, hands down, gave that advantage to the New England Patriots. Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, in this game, the Eagles had the way better special teams, and specifically I'm talking about the kicking game with the Patriots and Stephen Gostkowski. On one, they have a botched snap, and they miss a field goal, and then he also missed an extra point. So obviously, those 4 points would not have, is not the reason why they completely lost, because they still would have been behind the Eagles. But I think that kind of, changed Fields' position, it changes momentum, and I think that was a big deal in the game that not a lot of people are talking about. Gostkowski, earlier before the game in the pregame show, they brought a stat out that said that Gronkowski had never missed an extra point in the Super Bowl. And in the back of my head, I'm like, you're jinxing the guy right now. And of course, what happens? Goes out and he misses an extra point, and then because of a botched snap, they also miss a field goal. So there are a lot of different ways that you can spin it as to why this Patriots team lost. Realistically, I think at the end of the day, you really just have to give a lot of credit to the Eagles. Like I said, they came out firing. Their defense did their job, and it was tough. Like, you have to. This Patriots team is not going to get worn down very easily.
No.
And for the Eagles, they stayed with their scheme. They didn't get out of character. And eventually in the fourth quarter, Brandon Graham was finally able to get to Tom Brady after 3 quarters of Brady basically being upright. So, as much as I want to sit here and blame a lot of things on the Patriots, I think I have to flip the script a little bit and just give a lot of credit to the Eagles.
Oh, I know that's hard for you to do.
That was very, very tough, and that's probably the last time I will ever say that.
Yeah, no, something else I mentioned in this, or I saw in this game, was the running game for the Eagles. And not just literally the running game, but just the running backs on this team. It seemed like they all had very solid games, and whenever the Eagles ran the ball, it was a significant, yardage. LeGarrette Blount had 90 yards and a touchdown. Jay Ajayi with a solid 9 carries for 57 yards. And then Corey Clement, and this was the guy that really impressed me, catching the ball out of the backfield. 4 receptions, 100 yards, 1 touchdown. Very, very tough to stop a team with 3 running backs there going at that full pace. And it reminded me actually of a lot of the Patriots, because the Patriots have a lot of running backs that they can switch to. This is what made the Eagles so dangerous this entire year, was the fact that they had so many weapons. I'm not even talking about the receiving weapons in Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey and Zach Ertz, who also played really good in this game. I believe the Patriots also, if there is something to blame, and I'll get into this in a second, their defense, I believe, gave up the most yards ever in the Super Bowl. So not only did the Eagles really use their offense to their full extent, but the New England Patriots also didn't come to play 100% on defense. That might have been due to injuries and a certain corner they didn't play. And I'm going to keep saying this until we talk about it. But this Eagles offense was this good. It reminded me of the Falcons a little bit last year, except the Eagles actually won the game this year and didn't blow it completely. And I just trying to give them credit, just saying that the rushing game was good, the receiving game was solid, obviously the quarterback play was solid, and most of the time when you have all those elements working, you're going to win the game, and Philadelphia won the game.
Yeah, no, very true. Another thing that I want to bring up about this game, a certain catch, no catch rule. We had two controversial touchdown catches, one that I think was very controversial, very gray, and another one, the eventual game clinching touchdown by Zach Ertz that I think was more of a touchdown and not as much of a discussion. But let's talk about the first one, and I believe you know what I'm talking about, the Corey Clement's touchdown that was in the back of the end zone where he catches the ball, tries to secure it, and as he's bringing the ball into his body, you can see it start to kind of slip a little bit. He ends up falling to the ground and in my opinion, regains full control. Obviously, it's a scoring play, and in the NFL, anytime there's a touchdown, the play is automatically reviewed. So it goes to the back to New York as well as the referees on the field. They decide that they think it was a catch. Now, whether that was confirmed or whether confirmed meaning that there's not enough evidence to overturn it, or whether they actually thought it was a legitimate catch, I am not sure. To me, looking at all the different angles, it's just very tough. The catch rule is, there's so many different different dynamics to this rule that for me, when he was coming down, the ball looked like it was slipping a little bit.
Yeah, it's
not that he completely lost control, but when he was going to the ground, the ball looked like it was moving. To me, that to me is not a catch. I think there's a lot of other people who would agree that he didn't complete the entire process of the catch, from the time you catch the ball to bringing it into your body to landing on the ground and securing the catch. I believe he caught the ball first, and then when he landed on the ground, he had control. But that middle part, I don't think he fully had control when he was trying to bring the ball into his body. Therefore, I thought it should have been incomplete. Obviously, the referees and the people back in New York disagree. What do you think?
Yeah, no, these were interesting, and I actually forgot about these two calls when I was trying to just remember the Super Bowl. And I did, the NFL Network tends to show the Super Bowl over the next day, and I actually watched it the next day just to make sure I didn't forget anything, because of course I was drinking some alcohol during the game. I didn't see every single play in touch, so I did want to watch it again the next morning and watch most of it. And yeah, I had forgot about the Corey Clement touchdown catch. I was like, man, that at first glance, I'm like, that's not a touchdown. And even at second glance, with the NFL's rules, it didn't seem like a touchdown. But I think with that one specifically, because the Zach Ertz one, I completely disagree that was even contested. Zach Ertz was clearly a runner on that play, and I know this hurts you a little bit because of the Des Bryant rule a couple years ago. It did remind me of that a little bit. But Zach Ertz had caught the ball, was running, and dove for the end zone. This wasn't he was completing the catch. That one, the entire time I knew they were going to keep as a catch, or whatever they ended up calling. I knew they were going to call a touchdown. The Corey Clement one, though, I think this was a little bit of the referees, or maybe the NFL said to the referees, hey, let's not make catches and whether balls were caught a big deal in the Super Bowl. If something looks somewhat like a catch, just call it. And I think it shows that the NFL is definitely going to change this rule next year.
They have to.
And is going to make it so that the Corey Clement catch is a catch. Because realistically, when you're playing football with your friends, that's a catch. That's not a miss. We're not going to instant replay out in the yard. That's a catch. The Zach Ertz one was clearly a catch. So even though Clement bobbled the ball a little bit, he caught the ball. The ball never actually hit the physical ground, which would really make you contest it. I thought it was a catch, with your friends. So the NFL needs to make it a catch in the NFL as well. And I think possibly the NFL said to the referees, hey, let's make this game not a penalty game, and let's just play this. And even with reviews, let's not make that a point of contention the next morning for sports pundits to talk about and for the NFL to complain and for fans to complain and all that stuff. So that's what I believe that came from. The Clement one was not a catch with the NFL rules, to be honest. But I think the NFL is relaxing their rules a little bit and showing you what is here in the future.
I'm okay with it being a catch as long as they are consistent with it. Now, I understand that every catch is different, right, to some degree, but you have to be consistent with it. And I think these referees in the offseason, if they do decide to make a change, or even if they don't, I think these referees need to be trained better in the offseason on learning what is a catch and studying these plays and trying to put themselves in better positions to see the angle of the play. And I think one of the reasons why sometimes referees listen, all these referees, while they do get paid a lot of money and while they are, I'm sure, in very good positions with themselves, they're very scrutinized, but it's because they're not full-time employees.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that the NFL needs to look into.
And you've brought this up.
I have brought this up. These referees need to be full-time employees. Listen, the NFL is just very stingy, in my opinion. Give these guys full benefits. Give them a full salary. And in the offseason, let them go and study film. Let them go train. Let them go to other football events, whether it's the Canadian Football League or anything like that. And let this be a year-round thing so that when the NFL season comes up, they are better prepared to be on the field and call a better game. I think right now, if you're a referee, there's no incentive for you to do that in the offseason because you're not getting paid and you're not a full-time employee. So in the offseason, they either go on vacation or they go to their secondary jobs. And so they're not able to spend that time training like the athletes are and like the NFL as a whole is. So I think that's partly on the NFL because listen, they want to put, they always say they want to put the best product on the field, right? Well, the referees are a part of that. So if you're going to do that, then you need to pay these referees like they should and make them full-time employees. So now while saying that, going a little bit away from that Corey Clement catch and going to the Zach Ertz catch, I think 1,000% that Zach Ertz catch, I think it was a catch.
Yeah. No, I agree.
There's no doubt about it. He caught the ball, took like 3 full steps, and then dove into the end zone. In my opinion, he was actually a runner at that point. So the moment he crosses the goal line with the ball, or the pylon, it's a touchdown, period, end of story, no matter if he fumbles because of the ground or another player takes the ball out of his hands. And I mean, I hate to bring this up again, but like the Dez Bryant play was a catch as well. Yeah. He almost did the same thing. He caught the ball, took 2 steps, and then dove into the end zone.
Yeah. No, that's
he's then a runner. It is then you cross the goal line, it's a touchdown, period, end of story. So I have no problems with the Zach Ertz catch at all.
Well, the funny thing about the Dez Bryant one was Zach Ertz took more steps than Dez Bryant did. So the Zach Ertz one was actually more of a catch than Dez Bryant's was.
Right.
Which really proved that this was a catch. If it was similar, maybe people would argue it more and all that, but yeah, that one wasn't even a question. I don't know what the hell Chris Collinsworth was talking about in that broadcast, saying that it wasn't a catch. Me and my cousin were yelling at the screen. We're like, "This is a catch! Stop it!" And this is what I like about the NFL is that for once there wasn't, and even though we're talking about it, there wasn't really like those calls where we're saying, "Oh man, one team got screwed over." No, there was none of that. These were calls you could see through that the NFL was saying, if you catch the ball, you catch the ball. Okay, you catch the ball, you get 2 feet in. Doesn't matter if you hit the ground, the ball bobbles out, a centimeter. It's a catch. And I'm glad that's the way it is. I'm hoping that's the way it is from now on, because that's the way it used to be. And football was, to be honest, more fun to watch back then when you didn't have to. Oh, is that a catch? Did the ball bobble a little bit? No, that's annoying. That's annoying as fans to have to do that. We want to watch it and say, oh man, that guy just caught the ball, got 2 feet in. Great. It's touchdown or you're in bounds or whatever. So I was happy that the NFL let that go. I'm sure you were too, although the Eagles benefited from both. But
they did, but you know what? At the end of the day, they got the calls right, and like you're just saying, that's really what matters is getting the calls
100%.
right. Whether it went the Eagles' way or the Patriots' way, you want to see a fair game and you want to see consistency, and I think that's what we saw. Consistency with both of those plays. So at the end of the day, you have to be okay with that.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to go to break. We're going to come back with more Super Bowl talk. We got a lot more to talk about with the Super Bowl. So we'll be right back on the Cover 2 podcast.
And they're going to snap it, and it's Trey Burton who throws caught. Foles. The line does a good job. The pass into the end zone, and it is Corey Clement.
The ruling on the field stands.
Flares out to the right, caught over the middle, and into the end zone. Zach Ertz.
When the ball came out, does he control it?
The receiver possesses the football, becomes a runner, breaks the plane of the goal line. The ruling is confirmed.
Brady gets hit. The ball is out, and Philadelphia has it. Escapes the sack, launching one for the end zone. It's a jump ball, and it's incomplete. And Gronk was there. And time runs out.
What a football game. Jeffrey, congratulations on your first World Championship and bringing home the Vince Lombardi Trophy to the city of Philadelphia. That sounds good, doesn't it? What an amazing turnaround for your organization and your fans. Congratulations and enjoy your first Lombardi Trophy in Philadelphia.
Cover 2 podcast back on OC Rock Radio for our second NFL segment, continuing with the Super Bowl talk, but shifting the focus a little bit from the actual game to a very, very controversial coaching decision by arguably one of the best coaches in NFL history, Mr. Bill Belichick, who decided to sit Malcolm Butler, who was the basically should have been the Super Bowl MVP of 3 years ago. Nick, I'm going to let you get started with your thoughts and basically a reason as to why Butler was benched.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. And especially since Malcolm Butler released a kind of a letter on his social media proclaiming that a lot of the rumors of him either being at concerts, being caught with marijuana, being intoxicated, breaking curfew, those things were all fake. They were false reports. So he came out with a letter condemning the media for kind of saying that stuff, and then he said that he was pretty much with his family all of the break between when the Super Bowl happens and when you get there and all the practice and all the media stuff. So it creates a lot more doubt in Bill Belichick and the coaching staff for why they wouldn't play their best player on defense. Jared, I have a question for you. Let's say the Cowboys make the Super Bowl next year. Okay? Good chance. You get Ezekiel Elliott back, full season. Dak Prescott's a great quarterback. Your defense is great. Would you play Sean Lee? Would you play Sean Lee in the middle of your defense if you had the choice?
That's really a question? You're really
100%
asking me that?
question. Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Okay, and if the Arizona Cardinals find their way into the Super Bowl with a brand new quarterback and a brand new coaching staff, would I play Patrick Peterson on defense?
I would hope so.
Yes, I would. So why the hell did the Patriots not play their Patrick Peterson or their Sean Lee on defense? I am still dumbfounded, especially since the rumors of Butler kind of being, breaking curfew and all this stuff and doing all this crazy stuff is, according to him, untrue. So I don't know why the Patriots didn't play him. The only possible reason, which is kind of crazy, that they wouldn't play him, is that they thought that Malcolm Butler was such a key part of their defense that they tried to throw off the Philadelphia Eagles by just not playing their best player on defense, hoping that they had run a scheme that was completely for him being on defense and that, Eric Rowe, would somehow change that. See what I'm saying?
That's outsmarting yourself.
Exactly. And I don't think that's what happened. So I still think there's something to come out of this now. I'm waiting for the Patriots brass to tell us the real reason why Malcolm Butler didn't play, because this was not a football decision. This was a dumbass decision by the New England Patriots. And I still am trying to figure out, especially since this new letter came out, why they didn't do it. So, Jared, can you please give your opinion? Because I don't know.
Well, number one, do not hold your breath, because the Patriots brass is not going to tell you anything,
Exactly.
and you should know that, because they do not disclose information if they do not have to. That is the first thing. Number two, I actually don't agree that Malcolm Butler is the best corner. I think that goes to Stephon Gilmore, who they picked up from the Bills this offseason. I think he's actually a better man-to-man, and even so, I think he's just a better all-around corner. I think Malcolm Butler is their second-best corner, but still, in my personal opinion, first of all, this is the Super Bowl, okay? This isn't week one.
Exactly.
This isn't a preseason game. This isn't even week 10 and you're trying to get into the playoffs. This is the Super Bowl. Like, this is it. I don't care if Malcolm Butler did actually miss somewhat of a curfew. That, to me, is not a big enough reason as to why you should sit one of your top defensive players at all. If he was drinking or doing drugs, or if he was actually out partying or anything like that, and now obviously he's coming out and saying that's not true, and I'm not saying he's lying, but we still don't know the entire truth yet. Until, unless the Patriots brass does come out and say something, and then you can have more of an argument. But if he did something like that, then I think that's more of a cause for, why Bill Belichick would want to sit one of his better defensive players. But if it was really just because of a potential small missed curfew, I'm having a very, very hard time sitting here and understanding why Belichick would do that. And listen, he's obviously going to be a Hall of Famer, one of the best coaches in NFL history, hands down. There's no disputing that. But I don't agree with him on this decision at all. Now, I'm not saying that if Butler was in, that that would have completely swung things, and the Eagles would have only scored 20 points instead of 41, and the Patriots would have won the game. I'm not saying that Butler would have made that big of a difference. But do I think he would have made some difference? Yes. I think he's a better corner than Eric Rowe, who had to come in and replace him. I think he knows the defense a little better. He played all season long. He's definitely more comfortable in that role. So for Eric Rowe to have to step in as a starter in the Super Bowl, one, I think he had a lot of nerves going on. He did have a couple pass breakups, but he also did give up that touchdown to Alshon Jeffrey, and he did give up some other plays. So, listen, I want to hear from Bill Belichick on this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying we're going to. I don't think we're going to. But I would really like to hear him and him give an honest answer as to why he sat Malcolm Butler, because right now I'm dumbfounded and I completely disagree with his decision.
And here's the other part of this that we haven't talked about yet. The fact that Bill Belichick decided to tell them about 5 minutes before the game started. That is the other thing that it makes this story even crazier. That this wasn't, Butler broke his curfew on, let's say, Friday night. And Belichick goes, dude, you've done this before in the past. I got to set an example for the rest of the team. You're not playing in the Super Bowl, or you're going to play limited plays. Eric Rowe's going to start. He's going to play. I have to set an example. And then it comes out in the media Friday or Saturday that Malcolm Butler is, because of disciplinary reasons, is not playing. But to do it to him 5 minutes before the game, right before the national anthem, because we saw him crying during the national anthem, and I was saying, why is Malcolm Butler crying? He's been in 3 Super Bowls already. I don't think this moment is getting to him.
Right.
He made one of the biggest plays in Super Bowl history with an interception against the Seattle Seahawks. Thank you for that, Malcolm Butler, by the way. He had been in the Super Bowl last year and won it. His second one. The conference championship the year before. That I knew he's crying for some other reason. Something is going on. And then Eric Rowe was not told that he was going to start until after they told Malcolm Butler that he wasn't going to start. So this is like, imagine this, Jared, because you played football longer than I did. Imagine you're playing in the CIF championship game here in California. That's the state champ. That's the big championship game for high school sports here in California, or high school football. You're going to be playing in the state championship game, and you are not starting usually. You're a guy that comes, plays a lot of special teams. You're a guy that plays occasionally at corner when they go to different sets and they need more DBs. and all of a sudden your coach goes, hey, 2 minutes before, right after the national anthem, you're pumped, you're like, okay, I know my role, I know what I'm doing. And he comes up and tells you, oh, by the way, you're going to start the entire game, you're going to cover Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Ertz. In the Super Bowl, by the way. In the Super Bowl. That is crazy. That's not good coaching by anybody, okay? Not the best coach in the league. Not a pee-wee coach from down the street, okay? None of this made sense. And if you were going to discipline him at least the night before. So that Malcolm Butler has time to compress what he's done. He has time to get ready for his play, although I think he played like one snap the whole game, so it didn't matter anyways. But at least let the young dude, Rowe, know that he's playing the night before so that he's ready to play. Because he was not ready to play a full game at corner. I don't want to hear, oh, he's in the NFL, he should know. No. If you've played your entire career as a backup behind two great corners, Stephon Gilmore and Malcolm Butler, you are not ready to play in the Super Bowl. Okay? So, again, now you comment on this. Because this was even crazier than the fact that they didn't play him, that they told them about 5 minutes before the game started.
That to me is completely wrong. And I agree with, not that I agree, I understand what you're saying as far as in that moment he wasn't, mentally prepared as far as he didn't think he was starting, so I get that. But the notion that he didn't have enough time to prepare or anything like that, I think is bogus. Listen, these guys are professionals. The thing that is always talked about, and I can guarantee you in every single locker room, is next man up. And I don't care if you're the second string, third string, you are one play away from getting in the game, one injury away from getting in the game. So I think that whole notion goes right out the window. These guys need to be prepared. Look at Matt Castle when he had to come in and step in for Tom Brady. I believe in 2011 when Tom
That's
Brady...
different. That's not in the Super Bowl game.
No, it's not in the Super Bowl, but he had to come in and he led the team to an 11-5 season and got him to the playoffs. There's so many different stories that I can talk about where guys got injured and then, next man up mentality. Butler, for instance, I forget if someone got injured in that Super Bowl, but he wasn't starting.
Yeah. I think he played for, who was it? It was Arrington. I think that
he came in for Arrington and he played, right? So all these backups, they have to be ready and they need to prepare during the week and study as if they were starters. That is what a true professional does, or a true athlete does. So the notion that he wasn't mentally prepared, I hope he was, because if he is any type of professional, and if Bill Belichick is the greatest coach that we all think he is, he has all of his players from Tom Brady to the 53rd guy on the roster completely ready to go whenever, wherever. So I think Rowe was ready. Was it a complete shock to him? More than likely that he was going to start the whole game 5 minutes before the game starts? Yes. That's obviously a shock. And that probably brought on some extra nerves and butterflies, and that probably took him some time to settle down. But does he know this defense? Yes. Should he have been very prepared for what the Eagles were going to do on offense? Yes. So from a schematic standpoint and from a football standpoint, I think he should have been completely ready. But the nerves, he's a human being. So the nerves, I can understand if he was a little jittery and why he gave up some of those plays. Unfortunately, obviously, for Malcolm Butler, didn't get to play a tough ending, more than likely, to his career. He will be an unrestricted free agent.
Career with the Patriots.
Right, yeah. Career with the Patriots going into this offseason. So the way that things are going right now, I don't see him going back to New England. I would not want to go back to New England at all. I would want a fresh start. He has put a lot of good tape on the field, and I think he will definitely get another opportunity with another team to be a potential number one corner, if not at least a starter in the NFL. Yeah, no, and the thing about Butler playing next year with the Patriots was already in question when they signed Stephon Gilmore before the season. Gilmore, like you mentioned, you think he's better than Malcolm Butler. I do not think that. I think Butler is a better corner, but they're pretty close. And I don't think that you're losing much having Stephon Gilmore be your number one corner and losing Malcolm Butler. And that's just what happens because there's a salary cap in the NFL and you can't keep every guy that you want. So I think it was a foregone conclusion that Butler was probably not going to be with the Patriots next year because they can't afford him. They'd have to give it way too much on a defense that they've already given up way too much on already. And that was one of the reasons they lost the Super Bowl game. But this even comes into question again with the decision not to play him and to discipline him. This is his last game with the Patriots.
So why I get that it might be a coaching decision, but you're punishing the guy by not playing him in the biggest game of the year.
You're punishing the entire team.
Exactly. Yeah, so I get and I even mentioned, it makes sense if it was a learning experience, but this is a guy that's not going to play probably a game ever again for the New England Patriots. So you can't make this decision the same. You can't punish a guy the same as you would maybe a rookie guy. Let's say Eric Rowe was starting before this game, and he was the guy that had played over Malcolm Butler, and then Belichick said, you know what, I'm putting Malcolm Butler in for this game. Rowe, you whatever you did, you missed curfew, because I still think Butler did something to cause him not to play. I don't think this is just an anomaly decision. But if this was a veteran taking over for a rookie, it'd make a lot of sense. Okay? Because then again, Butler would be playing his last game. But because it was Butler's last game with the Patriots, and it was a rookie that came in for him to play, I just think that this was a bonehead decision by Bill Belichick. And unless it comes out that Malcolm Butler did do the stuff that was reported, although he refuted it, that would be the only reason why I'd think that Bill Belichick made a good decision. And other than that, I think it was dumb, and I think it was one of the reasons they lost, because Rowe did give up, I think it was like 90 yards. He did give up one of the touchdowns, and they ended up losing by a touchdown. So
he did. Now I will say, I have to correct you. Eric Rowe, this is his third year in the season.
Third year.
He got drafted. I forget if he did get drafted by the Patriots. For some reason, I want to think he got drafted by the Eagles. But he's not a rookie.
Yeah.
And that's another, even saying more as to why he should be prepared for this type of moment.
That does change stuff, yeah.
Because even if you are a rookie, by this time of the year, getting into the playoffs and Super Bowl, you're not a rookie anymore. You've had a full season under your belt. So, there's the whole thing about him not being prepared. I think that he was more than prepared to play. It was just the fact of, oh my gosh, I'm actually starting now and not just going to play limited snaps. That's where
he played every snap,
right,
too.
Right.
So, we need to move on because we want to talk about one more topic from this Super Bowl team. But overall, great game to watch. Right, with the crazy,
fantastic game.
With the
most
decision,
yards ever in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, most yards ever given up by the New England Patriots. Who would have thought that? And Tom Brady, 500 yards. So great game to watch. Glad the NFL put on a great product to end their season. It's the second year in a row we've seen this, where a game has really come down to the final couple plays, and it's been a good game. So let's move on. We've got about 5 minutes left in this segment. Josh McDaniels. Actually, two coaches from the New England Patriots are departing. Well, at least we thought were departing. Number one, Matt Patricia is going to be the Detroit Lions coach after arguably one of his worst games, coached as a defensive coordinator, giving up the most yards in the Super Bowl. He jumps to the Lions to take over that job. He actually accepted that job, unlike Josh McDaniels, who is, of course, the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. Earlier yesterday, and I say yesterday meaning Tuesday because we record the podcast on Wednesday, Tuesday morning, Josh McDaniels was named the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, which made sense because that was all the reports that he was going to be the Colts coach. Then I checked my phone around 5 o'clock. I might have been a little late on this. And Josh McDaniels is now not the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Jared, can you please explain to me what happened here? Because I haven't really been able to research this 100% either. What happened here? Why is Josh McDaniels not the coach of the Indianapolis Colts?
I think there's a couple different reasons why McDaniels is still the offensive coordinator of the Patriots and not the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. The biggest reason, in my opinion, is because of Mr. Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick. I think at the very last minute, they pulled a rabbit out of their hat, and they basically, pleaded with McDaniels to come back into the Patriots office and have one final sit down before he left, because McDaniels supposedly came in to the Patriots facilities on Tuesday morning, like knowing he was leaving, flying to Indianapolis for his press conference, and somehow Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft were able to keep him in a room, sat down and spoke with him. And from my understanding, reassured McDaniels of his role and what he was going to be doing with the Patriots organization. It was being told that earlier in the season, in November and December, McDaniels is very unclear about his future with the organization as far as how much control he would have. Obviously, he is the offensive coordinator, but I think as you grow with an organization, and this isn't even talking about football, this is just anyone, you want growth. You want to be able to take on more responsibility, have a higher pay, all of those things. So I think that's what McDaniels was looking for, and I think in the beginning he wasn't getting the right answers that he wanted. So I think that's why he started this new coaching search and this new job search. Well, at the last minute, Kraft and Belichick came back and essentially reassured McDaniels that he will have a bigger role. I'm sure that he will be compensated financially as well. And I think obviously McDaniels heard what he wanted to hear. Also, another thing, I know that he loves having his family in Foxborough. Mm-hmm. That was a big decision that he didn't want to necessarily uproot his family to a different city and kind of start over again with his young kids and put them in a different school and all of that stuff as well. That sometimes gets overlooked. The whole family aspect of it doesn't really get talked about much. So I think that was a big decision in why McDaniels decided to stay. There's also another little conspiracy going out there that Robert Kraft wanted to stick it to the Colts. And what I mean by that is Deflategate. That was basically the Colts that kind of started that whole Deflategate process and that whole saga.
Interesting.
And as we all know, Tom Brady ended up serving a 4-game suspension to start the 2016 season. Well, I think a lot of us can agree that Robert Kraft is not over that yet. And so there's some people out there who are thinking that Robert Kraft will forever, as long as he is the Patriots owner, do whatever he can to stick it to the Colts. Yeah. And so this is potentially one way of him doing that. My final thought before I hand it over to you, and one of the reasons why I potentially think McDaniels declined this job at the last minute.
This is interesting. You told me this before.
I did. I think, and I don't know this is obviously just speculation, that McDaniels potentially found out some information about Andrew Luck, that Luck may not be ready to start this 2018 season, and he might not even be able to play like midway. I think this shoulder injury, obviously with Luck not playing this entire past season, is a big deal. But with the amount of money that the Colts have invested, and for Josh McDaniels to leave the Patriots organization and to leave Tom Brady to go to the Colts, I think he would want some type of assurance that Andrew Luck is going to be ready to play. So maybe he found out that Luck is not as far along in his rehabilitation process as most expected, and maybe he's not going to be ready. And so maybe McDaniels thought, you know what? It's not a good time for me to leave. It's better if I stay as a coordinator for 1 or 2 more years and then find another head coaching job later on. So that's just my thinking.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said all that, because now I have a lot more of a perspective on this than I did before. I'm going to believe, I'm going to go with you on that. I do think it has something to do with the fact that this team kind of is, this Indianapolis Colts team, that's who I'm talking about. It's kind of a crapshoot what they're going to be next year. You know?
Without Andrew Luck, they're horrible. They're bad.
No, they're bad.
Their defense is horrible.
Yeah.
They have
offensive line is terrible.
They have T.Y. Hilton, but that's basically it. Frank Gore this is probably his last year, and he's not
serviceable
running back.
Serviceable,
yeah, but he's not. Yeah, and their offensive line's horrible. So it is a total rebuilding process for 100%. McDaniels. And I'm not saying that he's not the type of person that doesn't want to take on a challenge, because there's a lot of coaches, that's why they get into coaching, because they want to help rebuild a team in a situation. I'm not saying that, but no, you're completely right. This team is not the New England Patriots at all.
Oh, no. I mean, not even close. And especially without Andrew Luck, the only thing you're getting closest to the Patriots to is having Jacoby Brissett as your quarterback. So... and although I don't think Jacoby Brissett is a bad quarterback either, I just think, with all those, with no offensive weapons and no offensive line, because T.Y. Hilton was hurt a lot last year. I just think it's hard to play quarterback for anybody. But maybe McDaniels, and I do think a little bit that the Belichick and Kraft got to him a little bit, and there's always that reason that they might, hey, let's just meet in the office real quick. Let's just talk over some stuff. Do you really want to go to play for the Colts and not have Tom Brady and all these running backs and Brandon Cooks and a great defense to help your offense stay off the field? Or do you want to go to the Colts and have maybe Andrew Luck and maybe have a good offensive line and have a bad defense that's going to keep you on the field and have a running back that's like 45 years old. No, I wouldn't want that either. And that's why it's just... So I think, because I'm running out of time a little bit on the segment, I do think that it's had something to do with something that Josh McDaniels found out probably about Andrew Luck, because Andrew Luck is the lifeblood of the Indianapolis Colts, and it made him change his mind. And now there still is a coaching opportunity for someone out there. This Indianapolis Colts job, real quick, reminds me a little bit of the Tennessee job in college football. Nobody really wants it because the head administrators or the owners and the GMs, they're kind of crazy people, and they don't necessarily make the best decisions, and the roster isn't good as well. So interesting stuff coming out of New England all this week. With some of the decisions being made by people in the Patriots organization. We're going to move on to our next topic after the break. And Jared, this is a fun topic. It's called Do You Care?
Oh, yeah.
I think we've played it before, if I can remember correctly on this podcast. But we'll be right back with some Do You Care on the Cover 2 podcast live on OC Rock Radio.
Deals. And Bonds hits one high. Hits it deep. It is out of here. 7:56. Bonds stands alone. He is on top of the all-time home run list.
I don't know how you heard that, but I mean, I'm definitely going to look at my future for sure. I'm going to sit down the next couple of weeks and see where I'm at.
Brock, what would make you retire?
I'm not ready for these type of questions right now. I mean, I'm just going to sit down, reflect on the season, probably talk to my teammates. We fought all year long, all the receivers, running backs, linemen. I mean, we put all the work in together. So I'm just going to reflect on the season, proud of the boys, and just see what happens.
Son of rapper Warren G. He is Elijah G. Elijah Griffin. Those are his 4 schools. Decommitted from UCLA back in December. Going to commit and sign in February. In fact, it's today. And he joins us now from out west. Elijah, thanks for joining us. And to your announcement, where will you be headed to college?
Everybody's looking there.
Where I'll be heading to college? For the next 4 years, I will be heading to the University of Southern California. Right on.
Back here on the Cover 2 podcast. And Jared, do you know what time it is right now?
What time is it, Nick?
It's time for Do You Care?
It was very
coming back to the
subtle.
I just knocked down a soundboard here in the studio.
It's getting a little crazy.
It's getting a little crazy. It got a little over the top right there. Jared's having to fix the soundboard in the back. I don't even know how that fell. So we'll get to Do You Care eventually when and now Jared's got it. All right, we're ready to go. So Jared, once again, what time is it right now?
I don't know, Nick.
It's time for Do You Care?
Okay.
So this is the segment where we ask each other each a question, and we have to say whether we care about that topic or not. So, Jared, I think you get the first question here.
Sounds good.
So, and let's see. What's the first question for Jared going to be? Jared, do you care that today is National Signing Day?
I do care. This is obviously one of the biggest days for college football and basically every program in America. This year, things were a little different. In the past, today was the official signing day, and today was basically always the last day for high school recruits to sign with a college football team. This year, they decided to change things up and have, in a sense, 2 signing days. So there was a signing day in December, and it was just a way college football wanted, a little breakup. Instead of having everything at once and so much going on in one day, they wanted players, if they knew they were going to a certain school, they could then sign at that moment to basically not have as much clutter going on. there's a lot of coaches that like it. They think that it's a way to break things up. But there's other coaches that don't like it. There's other coaches that, are so glued to their ways, and they want everything done on one specific day so that they can also track where other players are going, where other schools are going, right? Like right now, you've had to know, 3 weeks ago, oh, well, this guy's already committed here, but he did it 3 weeks ago. This guy's still a non-commit, and we still have a chance to get this guy. So in certain situations, it can just create more controversy and create more work. But who knows if they will do this, for the next years to come. But for this year, they did. So far, Georgia leads the class rankings, and I believe it's the first time in over 5 years that Alabama has not been the number 1 ranked team in recruiting.
Ooh, interesting.
So a little blow for Alabama right there, but obviously still an SEC team that leads the way. Alabama actually is number 5 in this top 10 class. The top 5 is Georgia at number 1, then Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Alabama ranks out that top 5. So very interesting right there that Georgia gets that spot right there. So I am excited. It's a big day for all these high school kids, and obviously, hopefully, the next couple years, these will be the new stars and faces of college football. Nick, do you care that at least 3 Eagles players have already come out and said they are passing on a trip to the White House?
No, not necessarily, because this was, especially the guys that are doing it, it was pretty predictable. Malcolm Jenkins has been very politically aware this season. He's been one of the guys that has been, let's say, one of the poster boys of the kind of resistance against the national anthem protests and all that stuff. Not the resistance, but the he's been kind of one of those guys, and he's done a lot of interviews. He's actually gone to Congress to talk about some stuff. So I'm not surprised that Malcolm Jenkins is not going. He does oppose President Trump, so not surprising. Chris Long, very similar story with him. And who was the third guy again that was going to be there? That was not going to be doing it?
I know Malcolm Jenkins, Chris Long.
Yeah, Malcolm Jenkins, Chris Long.
I don't know if the third player has actually been revealed or if it was just
those two? Okay. Yeah. Well, just those two named. But so
Torrey Smith.
Torrey Smith. Okay. So not surprising with guys not wanting to go to the White House. Obviously, there's been a lot of opposition to the president. In sports, period, the Warriors have not wanted to go to the White House. Certain members of the Cubs didn't want to go to the White, stuff like that. So, or the Astros, excuse me, not the Cubs. And so this is not necessarily surprising to me. It will probably happen most of President Trump's presidency, just because it's a lot of the athletes don't necessarily care to visit him in the White House and don't think it's correct to go do so. So not surprising, and especially with the names that are coming out from the Eagles that are not going. I could have almost named, especially Chris Long and Malcolm Jenkins, that they would want to go to the White House for the traditional championship celebration. Jared, do you care that Rob Gronkowski possibly might be retiring?
No, I don't. I don't think he's retiring. I think this was an emotional statement right after the Super Bowl ended. I believe it was that same night. It's a lot of times reporters are obviously doing their jobs and they have to ask these kind of absurd questions to players. But realistically, whether you win the Super Bowl or you lose, especially if you lose, you're going to be very emotional, and sometimes you're not going to really say what you mean. I think that's what happened here. I think Gronk was just upset. And I listen, at the end of the year, when you play football, I don't care if it's in the National Football League, college, high school, whatever, your body's going to hurt and you're going to ache. And so at the end of the year, there's going to be a lot of guys who are like, man, that was a tough, long season. I'm tired. Maybe I want to get away from football for a couple weeks, go on vacation, relax. But I think, after a couple weeks or a month, when Gronk's body has had a chance to heal and rest up, listen, he is too talented. He's still way too young, and he didn't really have any major injuries. Fortunately, this year he was able to escape that coat. So I think he will definitely come back. Is it 100% going to be with the Patriots? I don't know. I can't sit here and say that is going to happen because who knows with the Patriots and what they're up to. But I definitely do not think he's retiring. I definitely think he will be in the NFL for at least a couple more years. I think he's way too talented and still way too young. Nick, do you care that Barry Bonds is having his jersey retired this season by the Giants?
I do care because this creates a very interesting dynamic between the Giants and their organization and the MLB writers who vote for the Hall of Fame. Because in a way, when you get your jersey retired, you are being inducted to a team's Hall of Fame. Now, teams also have Hall of Fames, but really when you get your jersey retired, that's a team saying, hey, you're in our Hall of Fame. You're a Hall of Famer to us, so we're going to dedicate your number and kill your number so nobody else can wear it. I'm not 100% sure on if Barry Bonds' number has been worn since he retired, but nonetheless, it won't be worn anymore. I believe the ceremony is on August 11th, so it's around the time when he broke the record, because he broke the record on August 7th. I remember that because we were celebrating my dad's birthday when he did it, so I do know when he did it. So I know they wanted to probably do it around the time that he broke the all-time home run record. But I do care because the only people now that have really not allowed Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens to be in the MLB Hall of Fame are the Baseball Writers Association of America. And that creates an interesting dynamic because the MLB Hall of Fame has said that they would welcome Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. And I say those two because they're the ones who've kind of been vindicated from doing it via the court system, the justice system here in the U.S., that they essentially have been expunged from ever doing steroids, even though pretty much everyone thinks they did. So those are the two names that always come up. But the Hall of Fame has said that they acknowledge Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and would welcome them into the Hall of Fame. The MLB itself has said that it would not mind if those two guys were in the Hall of Fame. The Giants clearly think that Barry Bonds is good enough to be in their Hall of Fame and should have his number retired. But the Baseball Writers of America just won't do it. And it's just a generation of guys that will not vote enough and will not get those guys close enough and hold a vendetta against guys they assume did steroids, even though there's not clear evidence that Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens ever did steroids. So creates an interesting dynamic. That's why I care. And it should be interesting. I'll definitely be watching that August 11th ceremony because Barry Bonds has always been an interesting dude, especially just even during interviews too, to listen to. Jared, do you care that this thing called the Winter Olympics starts Friday?
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? Of course I care. If you don't care, I don't think you're human. The Olympics is always obviously a big deal, and it's an opportunity to root on your country. Even though the Winter Olympics, I don't know, and this is just me personally, I don't think the Winter Olympics is, not to say it's not as celebrated, but maybe if you're not into winter sports, you're not into skiing, or you're not into skating or anything like that, figure skating or free skating or anything like that, and maybe not as many people watch as they would the Summer Olympics, but it is still obviously a big deal. I really love watching snowboarding and the freestyle skiing. Freestyle skiing, those guys are like flying down.
Oh yeah.
And that's really, really cool to watch. So I would definitely be glued, obviously watching USA. It's a big time of year. And then how long is the Olympics go for? Is it?
I think it's 2 weeks.
Is it
around
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I would expect it to end probably the Friday because they try to. I think they just try to make it 2 weeks. So yeah,
2 weeks. Okay. Yeah. Even though the opening ceremonies are on Friday, actually today, the 7th of February, there's actually events already going on.
Oh, wow.
Or starting today, and it's all curling events. That's going to be going on today, and then tomorrow, tomorrow you'll get the freestyle skiing, ski jumping, figure skating. That's when a lot more things will start to take place. So the actual opening ceremonies are Friday, but today the games actually begin. So excited. I know that will be on NBC Sports. I know NBC covers a lot of the Olympics.
It's NBC's thing, yeah. So you'll see MSNBC, CNBC, all the channels, USA Network, they'll all have, all the NBC affiliates will have.
Yeah, so I know I'll be watching. I know you will as well. And next week, we will definitely have more Olympics to talk about.
Yeah, definitely.
Nick, final question of the segment. Do you care that Kenley Jansen said that there's a potential that MLB players will have to strike?
Yeah, I think I have to care, right? Because that would mean there wouldn't be baseball for a while. This is a very interesting and kind of complicated situation. I was just explaining it to you during the break, so I'll explain it to, obviously, the listeners. What Kenley Jansen's talking about is the fact that there is a kind of an impasse between the teams and players right now as far as guys getting signed. And if you're wondering why we keep talking about, hey, there's still free agents on the market, this is weird. We're in February already, and there's still big-time free agents. I mean, J.D. Martinez hasn't been signed. Jake Arrieta hasn't been signed. Eric freaking Hosmer has not been signed by a team yet. These guys are free agents, among others. It is because of a situation going on. Now I'll explain it. The way the salary cap in the MLB, or the luxury tax, was set up with a new collective bargaining agreement. It was set up so that teams will really be penalized if they go over this threshold, and more than usual, more than they have in the past. So teams like the Dodgers and Cubs and Yankees and Red Sox will not be able to just sign whoever they want, and there will be more of a competitive balance. Well, what has happened, though, is that the Dodgers, if you guys can remember, traded a bunch of players earlier this season, essentially for nothing, to clear contracts to get under that salary cap. The Yankees have been slowly kind of having rookies come up their system so they wouldn't have to pay guys. I think they only have about $10 million more to spend before they hit the luxury tax. The Cubs are going to eventually have to pick and choose who they want to sign. But the problem here is that right now, the good teams aren't willing to spend money on more free agents, and this is just normal free agents. These are just guys that could play, a utility role on your team, or a reliever, or a fifth starting pitcher. They're not willing to sign those guys because they are going to make them go over the luxury tax, and the luxury tax really hurts them. It's a lot of money. I can't give you the exact amount, but it's a lot of money. And then the other problem is that the teams, there's a lot of teams that are willing to kind of tank in a way because of what they saw happen to the Chicago Cubs and the Houston Astros the last couple of years. When you completely shred your team, it's okay to lose 100 games, but then you'll turn into the Cubs and the Astros, who are some of the best teams in the league right now. So these free agents are not getting signed by anybody because big teams can't sign them, and bad teams are not willing to sign them because they don't want to eventually hit the luxury tax. So now the players want to think about striking to create a better collective bargaining agreement. And to be honest, if it keeps going like this, because agents are mad too because they're not getting paid, then players are telling their agents, well, what the hell are you doing for me? You're not even making me money. Why am I giving you 20% of my contract? So you're creating all this contention between a lot of different things. If this does not change, if this does not, teams start competing more, there is going to be a strike. I would expect there to be a strike. I don't know if it would happen next year or maybe 2 years from now, or maybe even right at the end of this season. But this is something the MLB really needs to look into, and it should be an interesting story for us to follow, but we just wanted to initially bring it up on Do You Care? Because it is something that could possibly happen, and it is the reason that these major free agents are not getting signed. All right. That is the Do You Care segment. We are coming back with some, on the final segment of the day, we're going to be talking a little NBA news. We have another major star out for the season. We have, obviously, a lot more news to talk about in the NBA.
NBA trade deadline.
Yeah, exactly. Trade deadline is Thursday. So we'll talk all about that, maybe give you some trades that we possibly think could happen. Talk probably a little bit more of the Cavs because they just are still in the rut. So we'll be right back on the Cover 2 podcast with an NBA segment.
Inside Porzingis, but he goes down hard and he's hurt. Oh my goodness!
You just don't ever want to see a guy fall and hold his knee. You always hope it's not as bad as it looks, but you can often look at their face and just see what they're feeling, and you can tell he's not felt this before.
It looks like any fire sale from the LA Clippers before Thursday's trade deadline will not include Lou Williams. According to multiple reports, the Clippers and Williams have agreed on a 3-year contract extension that'll run through the 2020-21 season.
Would you waive your no-trade clause if asked?
No, I'm not I'm here for the long haul. I'm here for this season right now to try to, figure out ways we can still compete. I couldn't give up on my teammates like that. I couldn't do that. I just couldn't do it. We put too much into the game, every single day. We go out and prepare, even though win, lose, or draw. At the end of the day, we all brothers and we understand that. So I owe it to my teammates to finish the season out, no matter how it ends up. So I would never waive my no trade clause.
Cover 2 podcast live on OC Rock Radio for our final segment of the show, talking about a lot of NBA with the trade deadline coming tomorrow at I believe 3 Eastern time. So Nick, I want to get right into it. Let's start with the Cavaliers, the struggling Cavaliers, I should say that. And LeBron James, who yesterday in an interview said that he is not willing to give up his no trade clause. He wants to stick out this season with his brothers. He doesn't want to give up on them. So what do you think about him not giving up his no trade clause and sticking with the Cavs for at least this season?
I think it makes sense. I mean, the option of LeBron James possibly getting traded is so foreign to my mind that even when the topic came out that he even had a no trade clause, was kind of or that he was even speculation that he might get traded, was kind of dumb to me. He's clearly going to stick it out, but I do think this is the last we're going to see of LeBron with the Cavs as far as this year goes. It's just, you can see he doesn't enjoy it anymore, and he has the option to leave next year, and there's a couple teams that can get him, but I do think he's going to go one more year at it with the Cavs. I don't, even if this season ends with a championship, I still do think that he will leave next year. This is the last year. As far as the trade deadline goes, there are definitely some guys that the Cavs definitely need to go add a guy or possibly 2. They don't have a lot of time. Pretty much right now they have about 1 full day to make trades happen because as we are speaking our live podcast right now, for those of you that are listening on YouTube, we are around the 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock hour here doing our podcast. So every team in the NBA right now has about 1 full day to make as many trades as they want. And I think that the Cavs need to make some trades. Now, Jared, I'll toss it to you. Who do you think is somebody that the Cavs should get? Or maybe there's 2 guys that the Cavaliers should get. I have someone I'm thinking of, and I think I mentioned on the podcast either a week or 2 ago, or either a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but I'll let you give your option. Who do you think? Or do you think the Cavs don't need anybody?
It's not that I don't think the Cavs need anyone. It's, to be honest, I don't know if the Cavs can go out and get anyone at this moment in time. And the reason I say that is if you are another team that's willing to potentially do a trade with the Cavaliers, right now I don't think the Cavs want to give up a whole lot. They still understand that on paper they still have a very talented team. So the Cavaliers basically only want to trade with another team if they can get something without giving up a whole lot. And I don't think there's other teams out there that are willing to sit here and say, okay, we'll give up a player, a star caliber player, for a couple veterans and a potential, second round draft pick or something like that. Because the Cavs do own the Nets' first round draft pick that they do not want to give up, especially knowing that LeBron James may not be with them next year. They're going to need that draft pick. So that, to me, is not tradable. That's off the table. One player that I think the Cavs are potentially looking at, and I don't know if this has even been speculated or not, this is just someone off the top of my own head, Kemba Walker.
Oh, interesting. I had not heard that name before.
I think that's more of just me kind of talking on my own.
Okay.
I'm not saying that the whole Isaiah Thomas situation has not worked out or it can't work out.
Man, that would create it.
But Kemba Walker is a very, very underrated player in this league, and I think it's because he plays with the Charlotte Hornets, and they are just not nationally recognized on television at all, basically. No. So he does not get the recognition that I think he deserves. He's a very quick, fluid, athletic player. He likes to run up and down the court, and I think that's something that this Cavaliers team needs, a little influx of youth, because they are somewhat of an older team. They don't really have a whole lot of young guys that can really jump up and down the floor, run up on fast breaks and that type of thing. I think Kemba Walker is that type of player. When he came out of college from UConn, he wasn't really a good jump shooter. He was just more of a slasher, drive to the basket type of guy. He's really improved his shooting since he's come into the league, and now he's more of a prolific mid-range jump shot guy. So I think he's someone that could come in and really, at least on the offensive end, give his team a spark. Because I really think that's what they need. They need to play better defense. That to me is just effort. I don't think it's because they have a lack of or not enough defensive players. I think that's just effort and hustle. I think on the offensive end, they need a little more spark. I think they play way too much one-on-one offense. It's basically LeBron or Isaiah Thomas with the ball and 4 other guys standing around. That's not going to work in today's NBA. So Kemba Walker, to me, would be a guy that could come in, bring an influx of youth, athleticism, and an offensive game. Not saying that he is Kyrie Irving, but something a little more similar that the Cavs would be used to.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting one you brought up, because Kemba Walker clearly would make a difference there. He's a great player. I'm very high on Kemba Walker. I've been high on him for about, really since he came to the NBA. So I'll let you know. So my player, and I think you've heard me say this before, I do think they should get DeAndre Jordan. Now, although I think that they don't want to trade that Nets pick, like you mentioned, because that's going to be a top 10 pick, and they don't want to give up too much. If you don't want to give up too much, though, are you just giving up on the season necessarily? Because this roster is not playing well. And last night against the Orlando Magic, if you can remember, this was a couple weeks ago, I said, we were looking at their schedule, because we've talked about this before, and I was saying, man, if they lose to the Orlando Magic, they were in a run. I think they had lost like 9 out of their last 10 games at this point. I remember I said if they lose to the Orlando Magic, they should just quit the season, right? And they ended up beating the Magic by like 3, right? They still won, but they won. So last night, the Cavaliers played the Orlando Magic again. And unfortunately, they lost. And that is not the big deal about the loss. It's the way they did. I believe they scored 43 points in the first quarter, and then proceeded to only score 9 points in the fourth quarter, and lost to the Orlando Magic by 17. So at one point, they were up by 11 in the first quarter, having scored 43 first quarter points. Slowly kind of scored the next 2 quarters, only scored 9 points. That's 3 3-pointers, by the way, an entire quarter for one team. And lost to the Magic by 17. There is something wrong with this team. This team is not. When you mention that the roster is good enough, and they think the roster is good enough, it's not. The roster isn't good enough. And I do think, and I was listening to a couple radio guys here in LA locally, and they were talking about Isaiah Thomas, and they were saying maybe this doesn't have to do with the fact that Isaiah Thomas is not conditioned well. Maybe it's his hip. Maybe this hip injury has caused him to not be a prolific MVP-like player anymore. Maybe it's hurting him more than he's telling people, and he's really not that good of a point guard, which would be why the Cavaliers should go after a guy like Kemba Walker. You bring that up right at the perfect point, right at the perfect time. And so I just don't think this roster is good enough to make a championship run, and which is why I think they need to get a bona fide all-star like a Kemba Walker, or in my case, a big man like DeAndre Jordan, because I just think you need to give up what you want, unless you're not going for a championship. Unless you're not going for it, but you would already started trading away players, so they clearly are. So that you need to make a move. I think if the Cavs don't make a move here, it'd be very, very questionable by them to not make a move. I think the guy is DeAndre Jordan. Jared thinks the guy is Kemba Walker. I think both of those guys, either one would help this team a lot. And obviously the Clippers are have been heard. Well, people have been saying that they are willing to trade DeAndre Jordan. So that's why I say him. But let's move on to the Clippers. Unless, do you have anything else to say about the Cavs? Okay. So we'll move on to the Clippers. The Clippers just signed one of their should-be all-stars this year in Lou Williams. They signed him to a 3-year extension, so they're sticking with Lou Williams. And this actually comes after comments made by Jerry West on the Rich Eisen show, or I believe it was Rich Eisen's podcast. Jerry West said he wants the team. One of the reasons they traded Blake Griffin, and one of the reasons they're turning the team around and changing the roster up a little bit is because they wanted to get more scoring. And Lou Williams is their top scorer, so it makes sense they're signing him to a 3-year extension. Lou Williams, the ageless one, it's okay to sign him to a 3-year extension, even though he's over 30 years old, because he really just he plays, he flows nicely on the court, doesn't bang up his body, doesn't get injured. So smart move by the Clippers from what they're going for. I like the signing because like I'm just saying, Jerry West saying they need more offense. This guy brings more offense, so it makes sense. But I just mentioned that DeAndre Jordan should possibly get traded to the Cavaliers. I think the Cavaliers should go after him. Jared, I'll toss it to you. Do you think the Clippers will trade DeAndre Jordan within the next full day?
Yes, I do. To what team? That is a little more up in the air. The Cavaliers are obviously a possibility. The Houston Rockets are out there.
Oh, man.
I want to flip it back and go back in time for a minute. If you're DeAndre Jordan right now, how badly are you kicking yourself for not accepting that deal with the Dallas Mavericks? When he had that deal on the table 2 years ago, and he eventually he agreed to that contract, and then at the last minute backed out. I think that right now he's thinking, you know what? I should have taken that deal and I should have left. The way that this Clippers organization is going, obviously you lose Chris Paul this past offseason. You just trade away your next best player in DeAndre Jordan. And Blake Griffin. You are DeAndre Jordan. And then you do have Lou Williams, which you signed for 3 years. And he's a nice player, and he's having probably the best offensive year of his career so far. But he's on the back end of his career. He's not young, and to me, he will still always be more of a sixth player coming off the bench. I think for a period of time, he can be your focal point on offense, but for a season to say we need you to be our leading scorer, I don't think that's a recipe for success. So if I'm DeAndre Jordan, I hope I get traded, whether it's to the Cavaliers, the Houston Rockets, any one of those contending teams. I think he would have a much better role and obviously a better opportunity to win a championship with one of those teams. Now, if you're the Clippers, what would you ask for in return? The Clippers obviously know what DeAndre Jordan is. They know what he brings to the table. If you're another team, if you're the Cavaliers, what can you give up? If you're the Clippers, do you ask for that Cavaliers first-round draft pick? Because if I'm the Cavaliers, to me that's off the table. I'm not giving that up. I will give up almost anything. I'll give you J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson.
I'd trade J.R. Smith in the
Would you trade Kevin Love?
Kevin Love?
For DeAndre?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because to me, DeAndre.
The problem with that would be that you'd kind of have you'd have Tristan Thompson still on the roster, and him and DeAndre Jordan are very similar like players, and they kind of play
the defenders,
the
rebounders,
same position.
shot blockers.
Exactly. You need that offense. So no, I wouldn't trade Kevin Love unless you had an alternate plan with another guy going to play the power forward position, or you just have LeBron playing the power forward position. I guess. So yeah, I would trade Kevin Love. Okay. I would personally, if I'm the Cavs, trade that draft pick as well.
Really?
If you really want to win a championship, because if you don't really care, and you're just like, okay, let's just see if we can win with this roster, then LeBron's going to leave, and then Dan Gilbert's going to sell the team, and then all this is going to happen. The Cavaliers are going to go back to being mediocre like they were when they first drafted Kyrie Irving. Then it really doesn't matter, and they won't really trade for anybody, or they'll just, they'll go for it in 1 year, and then maybe they can get LeBron to stay. But I do think you need to do everything possible to win this season because this is the last season you're going to be good. And the only thing I really think that would get LeBron to stay with Cleveland is a title. That's the only thing that's going to have him stay with Cleveland. So do everything you can to win a title because there is a 10% chance that LeBron stays in Cleveland, and that 10% is winning a title. So I would give up the draft pick. You obviously wouldn't. But the Clippers, they need to ask for the draft pick if they want it. And any other team, in my opinion, that they trade with, they need to get a lottery pick, or at least a pick that's not like number 30 or 27. If you're going to be trading with the Rockets, you need to be getting, although they've already traded with the Rockets, you need to be getting a young player if you're getting a bad draft pick. Or if you trade with another team, you need to get a good draft pick. I just think the way the Clippers and the way Jerry West was talking the other day about he wants to rebuild for the future and Steve Ballmer has a vision, they need to get draft picks, and they don't need to be getting draft picks that are in the 30s because the NBA is a little different than a lot of other sports where the later you get in the draft, a lot of those players end up not being key players on NBA teams. So you need to get those lottery picks, those guys, those picks that you that have a higher chance of becoming good players. So I do think that they need to ask for that draft pick. So yeah, that's a little bit of Clippers news right there. A lot of things going on with them. Lou Williams signing, DeAndre Jordan possibly getting traded. Jared thinks he'll get traded. I also do believe he'll get traded. To who? I don't know. I think it should be the Cavs because the Cavs need him a little bit more than normal. Okay, so last topic in the NBA segment. We got about 3 minutes to go. Kristaps Porzingis unfortunately tore his ACL. Now, it's not like the Knicks would have been title contenders and they probably won't even make the playoffs. But, man, the last couple weeks, there's been a lot of crazy injuries. Now, this is one that's bad because it's a torn ACL and he's out for the season. This doesn't even necessarily mean that he'll come back in time or be super healthy for the beginning of next season as well. So this is a bad one, and this is one where he's going to be out for a long time. But Jared, what are your initial thoughts on the Knicks and Porzingis getting injured?
For the Knicks, I don't think this changes a whole lot because even with Porzingis in the lineup, the Knicks still weren't playing that well. Now, Porzingis is averaging over 20 points a game and 2.5 blocks, which actually leads the NBA. So he's obviously a star player, and you want him on the court. But the Knicks still haven't been able to find ways to win. I believe they're fourth in their division, and they're not in the playoffs right now. So it's not like, he's a LeBron James, and he's leading this team into the playoffs, and then all of a sudden he gets injured, and they're just going to go downhill from here. The Knicks have been downhill, and they can't climb out of this hole. So from the Knicks standpoint, I don't think this really changes a whole lot. I think what this does is this basically just gives other players an opportunity, aka Lance Thomas and Michael Beasley, another more of an opportunity to step up and play. For Porzingis, this is obviously a big blow and something that you don't ever want to see happen to any player, especially the stars and faces of franchises. And it's a big deal, obviously, for him because he won't be able to play, but also from a financial standpoint, this is the first year, this upcoming offseason will be the first offseason that Porzingis will be able to get a contract extension, and he will be able to ask for up to 25% more than what he's getting paid now.
Just like Boogie Cousins.
Right. So, if you're the Knicks, do you still potentially give him that extension? Do you still see him as a part of your future? Because it's obviously an ACL. That's easily 8 months. So that's the end of this season for him, and then who knows if he'll be ready for training camp and the start of next season. So if the Knicks still see Porzingis in their future, I think they should reassure him that they want him by still giving him that contract extension. If they don't, I think that could be a sign that Porzingis may not be with the Knicks for the long term. Maybe he's still there next season, but maybe they trade him next season before the All-Star break to get some pieces back. So I think what they do with him this offseason as far as his contract and his negotiations is going to be a big telling point as to if he stays with the Knicks in the future.
I think they have to sign him. I mean, he's like the face of that team. Who do they want the face to be? Michael Beasley? Or Enes Kanter,
That's not even funny.
Yeah. So, you need to sign him back. And it's unfortunate that he got injured, and it's just like Boogie Cousins. But I actually think both those guys need to be signed back. The Pelicans need to sign back Cousins. Knicks need to sign back Porzingis. You need to get those guys that really make a difference in your locker room and make a difference on the court. Sign them back because you can't really afford to lose them. So I think it'd be very foolish if the New York Knickerbockers did not sign back Kristaps Porzingis. But unfortunate, because we've seen a lot of injuries lately, and it just sucks to always see these guys, it always sucks to see guys get hurt. And another All-Star from the East. Because I remember I joked with you through text. I was saying, man, Lou Williams can just not find a way to these All-Star games, can he? It's always the East guy. He's been praying that you know, I'm trying to think of a guy. He's been playing that Klay Thompson gets hurt or something for 2 weeks, so he can't play in the game. Nah, it's just not going to hit. So another East All-Star that probably is unwarranted in the game is going to make the team instead of Lou Williams. So unfortunately, sorry Lou, can't make the team. All right, so that's the end of the NBA segment, and that's close to being the end of the podcast. Jared, I think it's time for final thought.
Yes, sir.
Time. So do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I will lead it off.
Okay.
My final thought is sticking with the NBA and the trade deadline and talking about the Lakers for a minute. We didn't really get a chance to talk to them much on the show because we had so much else going on. But the Lakers, originally coming into this season, it was thought that they were going to sign contracts and basically do whatever they could to set themselves up for the 2018 offseason, where they could then potentially go after LeBron James. There's obviously, a lot of gray area with that as to whether LeBron James would even want to come to LA or if he wants to stay in Cleveland. And that, among other things, has caused the Lakers to somewhat shift their focus from this free agency in 2018 to looking ahead to the 2019 free agency, where guys like Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler will all be free agents. So, I think part of the organization, they're not giving up on this free agency in this season at all, but they're kind of just looking to the future and saying, okay, even if we aren't able to get LeBron, that's okay, because next offseason we can get, a Jimmy Butler or Klay Thompson, who is much younger than LeBron and will be able to play much, farther into the future. So, also this Lakers team, they're not playing that bad right now. I think they've won like 7 straight home games. They just beat the Thunder on Saturday in Oklahoma City. They beat the Celtics 2 weeks ago. They beat the Spurs about a month ago. So they're competing. They're playing a lot better than what most people would think for having the youngest team in the NBA. I mean, you've got Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Clarkson, Brandon Ingram. That's a lot of young players on your roster. So even if they aren't able to, swing off a blockbuster trade and get a big name guy, I think that's okay for this team, because obviously they want to make the playoffs. But if they can continue to get these young guys reps and get these young guys playing time, that's only going to help them for the future, because it's going to help in one of two ways. One, you're going to keep these guys and they're going to have more experience, so they're going to be better for your team in the coming future as far as making the playoffs. Or two, they're going to be more valuable when in trade situations. Other teams are going to want these guys more than they do right now. So I think it's a win-win situation for this Lakers organization. I think they're heading in the right direction. And I think in 2 to 3 years, if they're able to get at least one, if not two, potential superstars, and I think they're going to have the money to do that, I think they're really going to be back in that contending playoff scenario, and then they'll be able to not say they're going to be able to beat Golden State, but I think they're really going to be able to make a push for that contending spot in the West. Yep,
that is the ultimate goal. My final thought, I didn't get to talk about this because this was your do you care question. National Signing Day. Always love this day, and especially since my brother right now is playing high school football and is played against a lot of the top players. They're going to USC and UCLA. Guys like JT Daniels, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Abdul Malik McClain. A lot of these guys either played with my brother at Santa Margarita before, or he's played against as recently as this season and as in the fall. So always interesting to see kind of guys you get to watch in the field, and you get to watch that my brother interacts with go to big schools and have these big signing days and stuff like that. Elijah Griffin, another one too. So
maybe that'll be your brother in a couple of years.
Possibly. So, National Signing Day is always a big day for me. I always get excited, especially recently since my brother's been kind of in the high school football scene a little bit. So that is the end of the podcast. As you can hear Enter Sandman playing. Solid podcast today. The end of football has come upon us.
So sad.
Exactly. But we will more than likely be back next week with some Olympic coverage, some NBA talk, some baseball talk, all this stuff going on. Sports do not stop, and that's why we will not stop. So for Nick Neenan,
I'm Jared Smith.
And this has been the Cover 2 podcast.